This is a very good question. It's not an easy one anyway. And I believe we can and should build in the historical center of Rome. We should redefine the design of the city, but working very carefully. How? Not demolishing and designing new buildings, but integrating new quantities into existing volumes. So I think that some experiments have been done that are successful in Rome, and we should follow those, using existing buildings and working inside them. And sometimes we can working adding new parts, but very carefully. It is important to respect and protect the historical center of Rome as a unique organism. So we should think about Rome as a whole, and enter in confidence, understanding, and listening to the city to achieve with a new design an objective in working in one space, but thinking about the whole organism of the city. We can think, following the ideas of Gustavo Giovannoni as example, also possible and correct to thin away some parts of the urban fabric to create new external spaces as little squares are, that in the historic center of Rome need various configurations and can be needed in various situations. So we are not talking only of new buildings, but also spaces, of course, or both of them, buildings that become spaces. And this has to dialogue with the pre-existence architecture and integrate them in the new one. But remember that that the historical center now in Rome designates not now designate only the central part of the ancient Rome, as defined by the zoning plan of 1965. So in 1965, we used to have a zoning plan that designated the historical center of Rome. But in 2008, we have another definition that is historical city, that designates not only the historical center, that is the very confined perimeter of the historical city of Rome, and so it's much wider than that. So in some parts of this new perimeter, if we are talking about historical city and not historical center, we can be much more free to intervene, because the historical city, as an example, includes a wider part of the area of the Esquilino, for instance, where many operations have been done and can be done, or Piazza Bologna, or areas that are not in the historical center. So if you are talking about historical cities, we are very, very free of intervening today. Strictly in the historical center, which you may have a perimeter very clearly on the maps of the time of the 1965, well, there it is much more delicate. But let's say some interventions can be done, but we have to pay very much attention, and so there are very chirurgical insertions in the tissues of the city.
I think your distinction between the historical center and the historical city is a very important one. And you already touched on the issue that it's not just buildings, but public space. So I might ask if you think that civic space is still important to the city and how it's changed in its role in the city.
Exactly, it is. Rome is under too many extensions already a shared civic space as a whole. The whole city of Rome, the whole city center of Rome is an historical space, and the historical center is a civic space as well. And so we can think at the city already with this role. But if you mean that in your course you ask your students to design a civic space located in the historical city of Rome, then the answer could be that this operation can be done depending on how the dialogue with the pre-existing buildings takes place. On this regard, it is very important to teach the new architects and engineers to develop a particular sensibility in dialoguing with the city, to hear and absorb the city's needs. In redesigning parts of Rome, we must tune up with its morphology by running through the choices of those who conceive those parts. We need to feel what the city wants to transmit and what is able to transmit to people in order to be able to even try to be tuned with that kind of morphology, because we could make some mistakes in this extent to become too much out of tune, going to another direction that is not what the time, the accumulation of time brought that space to be. The city is generated by intimately cohesive morphemes containing a humus that, first of all, characterizes its nature, that makes it possible the perception of a so powerful and polyhedric phenomenon. And we had to catch this humus. Human beings are reflected in Rome, and that is why the city is made of its image, in its image and likeness. We must remember that we all desire to interpretate a city, to give it a face, a so-called vultus urbis, like Marcello Piacentini and Ludovico Quaroni talked about. Marcello Piacentini wrote a book that is called Il volto di Roma, and Ludovico Quaroni wrote another book that is called Il volto della città. And this concept of the vultus urbis, like I like to say, is very important to understand which is the vultus, which is the face of the city, which is the really the face. I mean, you can feel it as what a city characters are. An imaginative representation that makes it clear that the human flows are indelibly embedded in its stony urban territories, and that these mineral territories are, first of all, for them, for people, and not only, and not for architecture. So the two things are related together. So people flow and architecture are the same, and they have to become the same, like a person and its dog. I mean, they have to be the same thing. They have to have the same sort of face. Tengo molto al discorso del volto della città, e con la prefazione di Giovanna De Santis Riccerdone, Alessandra Montoni in introduzione e Franco Porini.